So what's going on, guys? Another new video today. I just out for a ride. Obviously I've already filmed most of the video. This is just this is more the review part of it and pre-log and whatever else. Out on a 20-degree morning here in Brisbane, which is for us here is starting to get a little bit cool. Bit of a wind chill factor this morning. But yeah, changed over the suspension of the bike, something I said I wasn't necessarily going to do. You'll be able to check out that video now. Back again. Today I'm going to be changing out the suspension on the rear of the bike. So if you watched one of my first videos, you would have seen me talking about how I wasn't too sure if I wanted to change out the suspension to lower the bike, because it's you know, I've heard stories about them bottoming out in cornering and that sort of thing. I didn't really want to take too much away from that because I like to be able to maneuver it pretty well. It's one of the things the bike can do reasonably well at the moment. So I mean, a lot of people drop these down on the 10.5-inch shocks that slam them the whole way down. These ones are the 11-inch, so it's not quite there. I mean, half an inch isn't really that much, but these came up at a good price. They're not generic ones that I've seen a lot of people using. These are actually progressive suspension, so a little bit nicer than some of the other units I've seen people use on their bikes. These came up on Facebook Marketplace. A guy had them on his Iron 883, but he ended up selling the bike and parted out a few of the bits and pieces off it. And I mean, these pretty much look brand new. There's hardly any marks or anything like that. You know, the sleeves are still really clean. He was a little old guy that used to, you know, go for a cruise on Sundays. So it's not like he was hammering them or anything like that. I actually ended up picking these up cheaper than what any of the more affordable shocks are out there, so I got a really good deal on these ones. So anyway, these are the progressive suspension 412 11-inch shocks. Pretty much to change these out, you just need the shocks themselves. You need a T50 piece. I'm using a ratchet with an extension just so I can clear all the bits and pieces on the bike. And on the bottom there is a nut that seems to be a 19mm nut, and I've got a little bit of Loctite to chuck on it as well. So this is pretty much all you need, this and a jack. I've seen guys do this in a more ghetto style where they just put pieces of wood or bricks or something underneath the bike just to take the weight of the rear end of it. Apparently you can do it if you change them one at a time. If you've got a friend or two that'll hold the rear of the bike for you. I went out and bought a cheap jack, which there's a review video that would have already been out before this one. You can check that one out. But yeah, pretty much a jack, ratchet, T50, and span it under the nut. Pretty straightforward. So we'll get into it and see how we go. So really interested to see how much this actually drops the bike. I've just got the jack taking the weight, not even taking the weight, just holding the bike upright at the moment. And I'll take a measurement from the bottom of this reflector to the ground. So it's currently sitting at about 375mm, or just under 15 inches to there. Now when I'm jacking this up, you don't need to lift the bike completely off the ground or anything, you just sort of need to take the weight of it. So when you take these off, the whole whole rear end doesn't collapse. Then to put on the shorter shocks, I'll just have to drop the bike down again to match up the bolts and put it back on. Now, how difficult is this gonna be? Oh, that was actually not too tight. Wow. That is on there. Incredibly tight. Wow. This is done up so tight. Ah. I know what I can do. So to get to this one here a bit easier, so I'm not rubbing a spanner up against that, I'm gonna have to take this drive belt guard off, which is just a 10mm. So what I'm thinking is I may have to take shocks off, lift the rear of the bike up as far as I can, so I can get this in under the exhaust, or drop it down so it's above the exhaust and do it from there. That might be easier, because yeah, just where I'm not sure where the stock exhaust would come to, but just where this fibre and loose cannon comes to, you just can't quite get this in the end of there in any sort of clean fashion, and I don't really want to chew that bolt out, so maybe keep that in mind. There's the top one. So there's this side off. So just showing you guys what I had to do here to get to that bolt around the suspension. I just had to drop the jack down, undo that one. So there's nothing on this side holding it up. It's just that bolt now. That is crazy low on the rear. That is crazy low. So yeah, this is now allowing me to get into here without any hindrance from the exhaust or anything. Probably the safer way to do it if your exhaust is sort of in the way mine was. Oh, come on. Wow. It just does not want to budge. Oh, that's so shit. Yep. So by the time you've reached this point in the video, things had gone a little bit wrong. I ended up stripping the head out of the bolt. I'm guessing it's at least partly my fault. It was kind of that funky angle that I was trying to undo it at. Seems like the bolt was pretty badly bound up as well. I mean, this bike, I bought it secondhand, and there's a couple of signs that other people have tweaked with some things on it and that sort of thing when I got it. But yeah, I don't know if they touched the suspension or it just seemed to be one of those things that from factory it was done up incredibly tight compared to the other 3 bolts. But it didn't want to come loose, and it yeah, caused a few headaches. But we got there, so I had to go down to the local Harley dealer, Morgan and Wacker, and order some new bolts to go ahead with the changeover after that. If you're doing this sort of thing, just yeah, keep an eye out for it. Just take your time, don't get frustrated and pissed off the way that I did. It's not worth it. It took it took me 3 days to get those bolts, and
Honestly, changing suspension is a 15-20 minute job if you've got all the gear there. And yeah, I just didn't do it right. So yeah, learn from my mistakes, take your time, do things properly the first time. But yeah, you'll be able to see the remainder of that video now.
Welcome back, guys. In case you haven't noticed, things have changed a little bit with the help of some editing. We've jumped forward a few days. Things didn't really go to plan the other day. I got pretty frustrated with that bolt. I ended up taking the camera off and really sort of hanging off it to get it to move, which actually really destroyed the head of the bolt. It wasn't going to move. It was well and truly seized there. So yeah, I screwed up the top of it. I ended up having to extract it with an angle grinder. I had to cut either side of it, shifter on it. Do not recommend it. You can see like it actually split through there. It's a bit worse now because I hit it with an angle grinder, but it like completely just caved in after a certain point, but there's no way it was going to move. So because of that, I went and purchased some more bolts, genuine Harley ones. It's because these are really difficult to source anywhere else. But anyway, it's extracted now. It's there. It's done. We can start putting the shocks back on. Before I do that, I do want to get a comparison of these shocks. Here are the old ones, and here are the new ones. There's your side-by-side difference. And if you want to go eyelet to eyelet, no, we'll use it in inches because that's what it was. They're like 13-inch shocks standard, and obviously the ones that I'm using are 11s, so 2 inches shorter. That's about, yeah, about 2 inches shorter. Rightio, so we'll start fitting these up. It's going to be that one, and that one. Like that. So that's sitting there. And this bike's got to go up a little bit. So obviously here's one of the good parts of having a jack is you can just adjust this. I mean, same thing as if you had pieces of wood underneath it. I've seen people use that and they just adjust the pieces of wood and they can get the same thing. That's pretty close there. So of course you want to put a little bit of Loctite on these again. Hold them in place. You obviously don't want your shocks coming off while you're riding. Now I'm just going to put a little bit of blue. Now we'll just do these up kind of soft. So now this doesn't want to fit. Okay, so with this spacer here, the bolt doesn't really quite want to fit. It's kind of annoying because I like the look of that little cover. Changing out the suspension, these dress caps don't actually fit back on again. That one clears the exhaust now. That is so much better. Haha, that is so much easier now. If that sits just a little bit higher, I can just get into it with that extension. The going amount seems to be about 40 foot-pounds, 45 foot-pounds. So that's about 61 Newton meters. That's about 45 foot-pounds there. There we go. There's the 45 there. And this one. That's the one. $45 foot-pounds. So there is the rear end lowered. And 350. It's lowered, yeah, 2 inches by 50 centimeters. I did read somewhere some people saying that if you lower these, you're running a risk of hitting all this. You've got a pretty big gap the whole way around it. Put the side back on. Put the bags back on. I've had a couple of people ask me about the saddlebags on this. They're two really cheap swing arm bags that I got off eBay because I didn't know if I wanted bags for this, and I didn't like the idea of putting huge saddlebags on it. I don't like the look of it. So two normal size swing arm bags work well for very low profile saddlebags on a Street 500. And these ones are relatively easy to take off and on. Two little belts on them, and that's it. I can fit 5 cans of beer per side. And the brackets I use for these, I just made them myself. It's just a couple of bits of tube and some round bar put together like that, and I just had to put some longer bolts in it. Just cut and welded all these, and yeah, that was it. See how this thing sits on the ground by itself now. See the stand out. Yep. Actually, yeah, that was the other thing I've heard people talk about, is sometimes you need to manipulate the stand a little bit to have it still work. I mean, I dropped this down to the 11-inch shocks. Some people take it a little bit further than that. So there we are. The bike is lower. Stand still works pretty well. How does it feel? yeah, it's like just enough to be noticeable, really. And wow, that suspension is stiff. There's not a lot of travel in that suspension at all. So there we go, guys. The rear end has been lowered 2 inches. I'm liking the stance of it a little bit more, but I have to see how it goes with the ride now.
So here's the review part of changing out your suspension on a Street 500. So I went for the 11-inch shocks pretty much for no other reason than there was a dude on Facebook Marketplace selling them. He'd taken them off his Sportster. They're the progressive suspension 412 style. Really good price. They pretty much cost me less than any of the shocks that you get out there new. He only had these on his bike for like 3 to 4 months or something before he sold it. He was an older dude who just, had some health problems and was sort of getting away from riding for a little while. So yeah, so be it. He just sort of parted out his bike, and I got a deal on it. In case you haven't noticed from the video so far, well, you would have seen the video in the garage. The bike looks a lot cooler. It sits lower. It's changed that. The bike sits a lot lower. It's changed the stance of the bike a little bit. The side mirrors actually are easier to use than what they were before. Downside is to having those shocks on this bike is, well, the Street Series, where part of their design was, to be able to ride around a city or whatever and deal with like shitty roads and potholes and gutters and that kind of thing, which in hindsight this bike did pretty well. I could ride around shitty Queensland roads and yeah, you had to deal with potholes and that kind of thing, but this is my first ride on the bike since doing it, and while on the flats, like the ripples and stuff in the road, you don't feel them. Any joints in the road or potholes, you definitely feel it now. You definitely feel it. I had to run the preload I had to up the preload on the new suspension to the highest setting, so I didn't bottom out the bike just rocking it backwards and forwards. But with the preload the whole way up, this is pretty comfortable for me, for my size and my weight. And the other thing is, I've already scraped foot pegs twice in the 5 minutes I've been on this bike so far, which kind of cool. But I could kind of throw this thing into corners before, and it's only if it was really like a really it's only if it was a really sharp sort of corner that I had to think about what I was going to do with leading the bike over. Now that lean angle has changed quite a bit. I think coming out of my street, or the street straight after that, the rear of my shoe scraped along the road, and I mean I've gone around that corner probably 50 or 60 times on this bike, and I've never scraped before, and now this one scrapes. And you can probably hear it in my voice, but yeah, I can definitely feel this thing popping up and down. So I thought I would bring it out here, and this car park has speed bumps in it, and you guys would have seen me go through here before. I just want to see. Whoa, peg was so close to touching then. Yeah, I just want to see how this thing handles speed bumps now, because it's not as kind as it once was. Oh yeah, yeah. Yep. But I mean, I guess, you know, as I said before, I've got the preload turned the whole way up, so this isn't quite bottoming out. But hitting those speed bumps, it is kind of flicking me up off the seat now. So, coolness factor of the bike has gone up. Comfortability of the bike's still comfortable. I mean, on the straights and the flats, and for, I'd say, for 80% of road use, it's fine. But for the cornering and the rougher roads, I'd definitely give this one a would definitely say it's lost a bit of its ability there. More in a bit. There we go, more dog food for the week. Seems to be my shopping trips for dog food are becoming the review of motovlog time, which kind of works. So yeah guys, there's I don't know how long this video is going to be now, seeing as there was a few unforeseen obstacles to overcome, but I guess I'd prefer to make a slightly longer video and just show people the whole thing and what can possibly go wrong. And I'll include this little review in it too. The video might be a little bit longer than some of the other shock changeover videos out there, but hey, you know, I don't really care. But I like the look. I'd say, I don't know, the dudes that do like the 10.5-inch shocks, I mean, that would, to me, that would be worse than hardtailing it. Because I mean, a hardtail, the bike bounces on everything. But as soon as you've got a tiny bit of movement, you know, it's kind of like it moves and then it stops, and it stops very abruptly with on the suspension. So I would say I'm not going to go any lower than 11-inch suspension on this model of bike. I don't think I would do it. My fuel lights just come on, so I need to go get fuel. But yeah, there you go guys, there's the video for you. Thanks for checking it out. Hope it helps you out. Hope it makes you maybe think before doing some of these jobs. And there should be another video coming up soon. So yeah, thanks again for watching. Like, subscribe, do that whole thing, and I'll see you in the next video. See you later. Bye.